And if I could just say this is a really important point, folks, is that this is something at the conference I talked about in some of my live interviews and my presentations, but there was an incentive to push Bitcoin up to the all-time highs going into this last week. And the answer to that is that it was the launch of the ETF based on the futures, right? So if you go back to when the futures themselves launched on Bitcoin, there was the same type of push up where the institutions that were launching the futures, you don't want to launch a product when it's tanking, right? I mean, that just goes, I mean, you want it to be popular. You want everyone to want to get into it. So you want to push it up. So you're going to create this FOMO. You're going to push price up, break key levels and get people on board. And what's interesting is within a few days of the launch, you could arguably say, okay, the institutions say, okay, the launch was amazingly successful. Now we don't care anymore. We're not going to use our own money to prop this thing up anymore. So now we'll step back. And what does price do? It starts to come in. So again, it's kind of suspicious about how it all happened. Doesn't mean it's not going to eventually break higher. You guys know I'm a long-term bull. I just think that price is probably a little too extended at this point, but it is suspicious in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, definite, obvious manipulation. All you have to do is just look at the price action, which, all markets are manipulated. This one's just so much easier because lack of regulation. We saw that wick yesterday where somebody, did a market sell instead of a limit sell. And we saw what happened there. And for anybody watching that doesn't know what that is, you got to do a limit sell when you sell because you will be subjective to what the market pays as price is dropping versus selling at the price you want to sell for. So somebody got wiped out on that deal yesterday.
God. And that was where I think it went as low as, did it go as low as 8,000? Is that what you saw?
$8,000, somewhere around there. Yeah. 8,200. So, hey, I put a market order in, a limit order in at like 10 grand just to see if I could pick one up. You never know if it happens again. So I've got some orders out there at 10,000, what the heck. But really interesting. Now, another concept that there's a lot of debate on is double tops. So let's take a look at that and see what your thoughts are in terms of double tops, and a lot of people say that, double tops are only good 30% of the time, and that in a double top, the second top has to be lower than the first. So what are your thoughts and what are we looking for here if this is a double top?
Yeah, so I'm in the other camp where I believe that double tops are best served when you actually make a new high. And the reason why I like that is because it gets the max. So I'm a contrarian trader, right? So how do you get the max amount of bulls on board? By making a higher high here. And again, trust me, I was on Twitter and tweeting about this, and you wouldn't believe the nuttiness out there over this break point when we took that out. So this is a classic double top at this point. But the key about double tops is you don't know if the pullback is going to be significant or it's just a shallow pullback, let's say to 57.5 before it moves back and breaks out. The one thing to keep in mind is that the best pullbacks come off of double tops. When you get a triple or quad top, meaning you go back up and hit it again and again, eventually it is going to break to the upside. So again, if you're going to trade a short play, the best one is off a double top here. And to me, it fits that criteria pretty perfectly.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And what else is interesting too is that we saw the double top, same kind of time frame and action with the Dow recently. Mm-hmm. I mean, we peaked right just above all-time highs. Same thing with S&P, but not NASDAQ.
Right. And I think from the NASDAQ's perspective, and let me bring up the QQQ chart here, and you can clearly see you're lower than that previous high, is I got to believe that that's partially based on the fact that yields are now nearing that 1.75%. So obviously we saw Snapchat warn yesterday on earnings, and it was just a debacle taking down Facebook and some of these other stocks. But I think also the yields, as people are now anticipating higher yields, maybe 2% in a 6-month period or so, there is money rotating into the Dow plays that are higher dividend players, the types of stocks that perform better under a higher yield system.
Okay. So let's summarize what we're looking for. Bitcoin, obviously weekends are tricky. So what are your thoughts on that? And then maybe we'll talk about, the traditional markets a little bit and then get to Dubai.
Yeah, so I'm going to look for the short to kind of play to the downside a little bit here. Again, 57.5 is your key level of support. That's really where I think the stand for the bulls has to be made. They can still fight that level and bring it back to 65 and maybe break it higher. But again, to me, that is the key standing point. I mean, that's the last stand, if you will. If it starts trading significantly below 57.5, I do worry that it could retest the 40 level. So if you can hold 57.5, I think you look for a potential retest of 65, maybe confirmation for a leg higher. If it can't, watch out below. My guess is you'll test that 57.5 over the weekend.
All right.